speck on the map of the universe.
Let's just get help. Oh, who are we gonna call? Critter Busters?
Today, we'll be talking about Critters 2, the main course. Back when I reviewed the original movie, I noted that Critters was a fun 80s creature feature about nasty little alien eating machines who terrorize a family in the small town of Grover's Bend. Critters 2 remains very faithful to that formula. But the movie also did what most sequels in this genre tend to do. It went bigger and dialed up the madness to 11.
There must be hundreds of them.
Critters 2, the main course.
More creatures, more action, larger set pieces, and the movie even went for an Easter theme just to switch things up.
Easter sucks.
Critters 2 was actually one of many movies my father took us to see when we were younger, and of course we all loved it. In any case, the sequel underperformed, and this was the last time Critters would be on the big screen. We'll come back to that, but more importantly, I'll take off my nostalgia goggles, and we'll discuss just how well Critters 2 holds up. Today's review will contain spoilers for both Critters 1 and 2. Critters 2 was directed by Mick Garris, who co-wrote the script with David Twohy. This was actually Garris' directorial debut, and despite the fact that he was stuck with a lower budget, there was still some serious effort put into the project. Garris himself noted that the sequel was a difficult shoot. He had to contend with frigid temperatures, he had to work with animals and children, plus the movie was filled with tons of special effects. All the same, Garris noted that he enjoyed the opportunity and had fun making the movie. The first movie wisely left the door open for a sequel. Critters 2 picks up a few years later. A nest of eggs from the first batch of critters is found, and after being reheated, the little monsters are soon back in action. Once again, the Kyoto brothers handled the creation of the aliens, and once again they knocked it out of the park. Unlike the first movie, which mainly took place at night and hid the critters in the shadows, here the monsters are on full display in broad daylight. So it was important that their look was improved upon. With up to 5 operators controlling each creature via remote, the updated technology meant even more sophisticated puppetry and mouth movements. Now, this is a horror comedy, so we get some lighter moments and a few goofy cartoon sound effects. But for the horror fans out there looking for some gore, this movie has you covered. For the most part, the critters still feel as ferocious as ever. Livestock, pets, and of course people are all on the menu. The critters still show off their ability to roll around like a demonic Sonic the Hedgehog and fire poison darts, but this time they make use of some pretty violent launch attacks too. One highlight of the Critters' carnage is the Hungry Heifer scene. An entire fast food restaurant becomes infested with these little nightmares, and the sequence is just entertaining as hell. Critters 2 also brought back 2 of my favorite characters, the shape-shifting intergalactic bounty hunters. Speaking of which, once more, for old time's sake, let's hear it. Unfortunately, Power of the Night isn't heard in the sequel, but we do get a new jingle that will burrow deep into your brain and never leave.
Hungry heifer, we won't give you an steer.
How about some buffalo chips or a moose shake?
I love the bounty hunters in the first movie, and here they're just as good, if not better. Ugg returns and is once again played by Terrence Mann. His partner Lee is portrayed by quite a few different players, but in addition to the original bounty hunters, we also learned that Charlie apparently joined the team sometime after the events of the first movie.
I gotta go where the cosmic winds blow me.
Charlie is played once again by Don Keith Opper, and this time around he gets solid character development throughout. You'll recall in the first movie Charlie was mainly known as the loser town drunk. Now he's sobered up and he's flying around space begging and tagging enemy aliens. What could be better? I think what really makes Charlie's story work is that even though he's cleaned up and made something of himself, he still struggles with insecurities and doubts.
Lee stays a nothing face till he finds the right self. Can't live in the wrong self.
One of the more interesting aspects of the bounty hunters in the original movie was that Lee could never settle on one face. This existential crisis was mostly played for laughs, but it certainly worked. Lee's story continues here, but this time the writers took Lee in a different direction. At one point, the team comes across a Playboy magazine. One particular image catches Lee's attention, and Lee transforms into Playboy centerfold Roxanne Carnahan. And when Lee transforms, we see pretty much everything, right down to the magazine staple.
I was there. I saw it all.
Carnahan is excellent in this movie. She puts a whole new spin on the character. Killing Kreitz is still goal number one, but we also get some great moments of humor thanks to her as well. The star of the show, of course, is Scott Grimes, who once again plays Brad Brown.
Brad Brown is back in town.
Grimes is known for voicing Steve Smith on American Dad and his work on The Orville and the series Ted.
Take a long look. This is what life is.
Grimes was one of the stronger players in the first movie, so it feels natural for him to step into the lead here.
Listen to me. I've been through this before. We have to fight these things.
Through Brad, we meet new supporting players such as Leanne Curtis, who plays Megan.
Perfect fit.
There's also Tom Hodges as Wesley. He's essentially the town Biff Tannen.
Leave me alone. Leave her alone.
What's it to you, butthead?
And then there's Brad's grandmother, as played by Herta Ware. So thankfully, Brad still has some family left in town who haven't been run off by monsters. Another cast member that returns is Lynn Shay, whose role is expanded significantly.
Take a breath.
What is this bullshit?
And even Sheriff Harv returns. Although, technically, we can't really count him as a returning cast member because he's played by a different actor. The original Sheriff Harv was played by character actor M. Emmett Walsh.
This town's a zoo.
This time around, we get Barry Corbin, who's actually a show stealer. In this movie, Harv is just as grumpy, but eventually he develops into a wisecrack-spewing, gun-toting badass.
Come on, you bunch of pussies. You got nothing to lose but your lives.
To be honest, this version of Harv probably would have scared the crap out of the original Harv, who was far more bumbling and cowardly, but it's hard to argue that the character as is fits perfectly in this film.
Hadn't your granny ever told you about those space porcupine things?
No, she never did.
Obviously, I'm a fan of this movie, but if I pop off the old nostalgia goggles, then I can spot a few issues here and there. For example, there are some times when the pacing feels off, especially during some of the setup early on, which moves a bit slow. By comparison, later scenes feel rushed. Most notably, there's one scene when a townsperson is on a lookout for the critters. We see a little girl peeking out from the church. The townsperson is attacked, and within seconds, Brad comes to find out what's going on, but the girl seemingly vanishes. Brad then stumbles over the dead body, and boom, the little girl is back, but now she's in the middle of a field, being chased by critters. So, did the girl pedal down the ramp at warp speed and end up getting chased by the critters all while off screen? I feel like I missed something here.
Shit.
For whatever reason, the movie sometimes drags us to scenes such as Grandma haggling over the price of deadly alien eggs, but quickly skips to other scenes that could use more time. But I think the one thing here that did get under my skin was the tease of a transformation that just wasn't to be.
Bullshit.
Now, as a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan, to this day I still wish this Freddy Krueger transformation had happened, even if only for a short while. I guess a Robert Englund cameo definitely wasn't in the budget, so we simply had to settle with Lee's transformation into Mr. Polar Express Eddie Deason.
How about some buffalo chips or a moose shake?
Anyway, minor gripes aside, Critters 2 finishes up very strong as the entire town unites to battle the critters in the climax. Along the way, we lose some players, which helps raise the stakes as you get the sense nobody here has plot armor and anyone can end up critter food. Eventually, the critters are lured into a burger factory rigged with dynamite. and we're treated to a nice, old school explosion. But you can blow up the critters all you want. Somehow blowing them up only helps turn them into a giant critter ball, because that's just how science works. Now, to be clear, this giant, glorious ball of critters is easily the #1 thing this movie is known for. Deservedly so. This hilarious nightmare chases people down and rolls over them, leaving nothing behind but a bloody skeleton. This is pure, over-the-top cartoon violence, and I love it. So, why wasn't Critters 2 a success at the box office? First off, let's consider the competition at the time. 1988 was a big year for movies. When Critters 2 was released in April of that year, its biggest competition was the heavy hitter Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
Maybe given the choice between these two comedy horrors, moviegoers simply went with the ghost with the most. The following May, Critters was still in theaters, but sequels to Rambo, Crocodile Dundee, and Friday the 13th easily overshadowed this sequel. Hell, even Police Academy 5 made more money. And that one didn't even have Steve Guttenberg. But the nail in the coffin was probably the lackluster reviews. Most notably, Siskel and Ebert tore the movie apart.
Critters 2, another sequel failure.
I thought Critters 2 was really an extremely lame movie, given the fact that they had a actually successful film to build on.
In the aftermath of the sequel failing to become a hit, Critters movies that followed went straight to video, which back in the day carried a bit of a stigma. Later, there was a straight-to-DVD reboot, and more recently, a short-lived Shudder TV series. In any case, thanks to video store rentals and TV airings, Critters 2 did go on to become a cult hit, and over the years, its fan base has only grown. Which makes sense, because as I've noted, there's actually a lot to like here. Critters 2 is thoroughly enjoyable, with great practical effects and tons of memorable moments. And of course, the bounty hunters truly kicked ass. On a sad side note, Roxanne Kernahan did pass away at an early age, but much respect because she was a true highlight of this film as well. If you haven't seen Critters 2 in a while, I recommend giving it a rewatch. And if you've never seen it, then I certainly recommend giving it a shot, especially if you like the first one. I'd rate Critters 2, the main course, 4 out of 5 giant critter balls. If you have your own thoughts on Critters 2, feel free to comment below. Also, let me know which Critters movie is your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, hit like, hit sub, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Every little bit helps. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care and be well. Later.
Die.